We'll now call the business session of March 3rd, 2020 to order at 6 p.m. Welcome to our guests. We provide an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on any agenda item or during the hearing of visitors portion of the agenda. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted one 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you are here to speak and haven't filled out a registration card, please see the City Secretary's staff at the registration table outside of the auditorium so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation, and staff will distribute those to the council. If you are unable to approach the podium due to a physical limitation, a microphone is available to be brought to you. When called to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Each speaker must limit comments to 3 minutes. If you are speaking on behalf of a group of 10 or more individuals present, please have those persons stand at the beginning of your comments, and you will be given 10 minutes to address the council. Please note that if you stand in support of a person getting 10 minutes to speak, you are forfeiting your right to speak on that item. For any person addressing the council through the use of a translator, the speaking time will be doubled to accommodate the translation services. Now please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Our first item of business is to approve the minutes of the February 18th meeting. Are there any changes? Those will stand approved as submitted. We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first is public hearing 2020-164. We have 1 public hearing tonight. Resolution. 2020-164. I have another one here. Okay, let's do 2020-164. I'll figure out what's going on.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed affordable housing project being developed by South Terrace Waco LP to be located at 100 Kennedy Circle here in Waco. The project is proposed the rehabilitation of 250 units, which would be 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units, with a total estimated cost of a little over $44 million. This project is seeking to participate in the 4% tax credit program with the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. As part of participation in this program and in accordance with Texas Government Code 2306.67071B, a public hearing must be held to allow public comment on the proposed project at this site. At the conclusion of the public hearing, there are 2 resolutions on your agenda for your consideration. Resolution 2020-164, which is a resolution of no objection to a proposed affordable housing project located at this site, and Resolution 2020-165, which is a resolution acknowledging that the affordable housing project being developed at 100 Kennedy Circle is located in a census tract that has a poverty rate above 40%, and the City Council authorizes the development to move forward in this census tract.
Are there any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this item? We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion on Resolution 2020-165?
Move for approval. Second.
Any discussion?
And just to clarify, this is public hearing 164, correct?
Yep, I'm jumping ahead. This is a resolution on a motion on public hearing 2020-164. I'm jumping ahead. So is there a motion on 164?
So I'm sorry, if we're talking about 164, can I ask some questions then, please, before
Yes,
we
sure.
make them?
Yes, and the developer is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Hi, Malet. Would you mind coming up to the microphone, please? Thank you so much.
Hello again.
Good evening.
I'm Millette Hopping. I'm the president CEO at the Waco Housing Authority and Affiliates. I just want to introduce Maddie Jones. Maddie Jones is with Coates and Rhodes. She's our attorney on the bond project that we're doing at South Terrace. We are rehabbing 250 units, so we're staying in place. We're going to keep 250 units. You had asked some questions. Is it okay to go ahead and answer those now?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when we talked before, I did not have a complete team yet. So we did not have a developer under contract for about 5 months after we spoke. So now that we do, the developer and our meetings with tenants, we've determined that the way we want to do this is to accrue vacancies. So it is our hope, barring a tornado or something else, that those 30 vacancies will stay unfilled, and that as we start the process for actual construction, we will be moving people who need those appropriate bedrooms. So they're not all going to be just 4 bedrooms that are being worked on. It'll be a mixture because I have to accrue the vacancies. And those don't come in just one area of South Terrace, nor do they come in a specific bedroom size. So the agreement there allows the tenant to stay in place on site. It does not require them to have to move somewhere else. Now, I am dealing with HUD as well as TDHCA, and everybody has an opinion on government. So I'm just going to tell you that we have to get everything approved twice. So, you know, it's with them and with HUD. So we won't actually have a final relocation plan until HUD approves it. And we have to work with the developer and the GC and so forth to get that done. However, that is our intent. We're actually going to hire a relocation specialist who does this typically for housing authorities on a regular basis. They will come in. Part of the budget is set aside for them to help people move to those 30 vacant units, store their items as needed, and then help them move back or stay there, depending on if I have an available situation for some of those people. We may have people who are overhoused, meaning that they're in a 2 or 3 bedroom unit, and as far as the requirements, they need to be in a 1 bedroom. So depending on what I have available, once that construction is done, we will move them then. But that's what the plan is. That's the plan that most housing authorities use. We don't like for kids to have to get bused somewhere else. But that isn't to say I don't have a plan B and a plan C in the event that something else should happen or come up. And so we've already talked to the school about how that will work to keep the kids in their regular school and so forth, should that happen. But honestly, they're going to work in those 30-unit capacities.
Well, thank you first and foremost for that. And just for clarification, those 30 units are on South Terrace. They're there right now.
Right, they're already there. It's going to. I have 17 vacant, and I'm holding them. So meaning I'm not housing people off the wait list because I've got to hold them for this purpose.
Okay.
And I want to get to 30. That's the ideal number according to the developer to work through.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Just in the process, like I said earlier in work session, I just want to make sure that we don't have our kids being buzzed across the city just trying to get to their school district. And so I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your strategy plan into making sure that it all stays there in that same vicinity, the same area. So thank you for that.
And I just wanted to mention that I will have to come back for the poverty and no objection for each site. So it's not just coming today. I can only name the site we're working on to get that done, and it has its own time frame for getting that done and approved. So eventually, probably in the next year and a half, you'll see me come twice for the same thing.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from Ms. Hopping? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion on 2020-164?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek. Yes. Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield. Yes. Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Resolution 2020-165 was also added by the addendum to the agenda. Is there a motion on 2020-165?
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes. Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido. Yes. Fairfield. Yes. Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. The consent agenda consists of resolutions 2020-144 through 2020-155. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
That's my thing. That's all right. I can do it. That's fine. That's fine.
Holmes? Meek?
Yes.
Kennard?
Yes.
Sabido?
Yes.
Bearfield? Deaver?
Yes, that motion carries. We have 8 ordinances tonight. The first is ordinance 2020-156.
An ordinance amending Chapter 13 Licenses, Permits, and Business Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco, Texas by amending Section 13-471 of Article 8, Bed and Breakfast Facilities and Short-Term Rental Facilities to address parking requirements, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for penalties, and finally determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance comes to council on first reading.
Okay, we have 3 cards on this item. The first is Lisa Monroe. And I will point out that some of you have submitted cards for more than one item that are not public hearings. You'll be limited to 3 minutes, and you'll need to discuss any of the items that you want to talk about during that 3 minutes. You won't get a second chance to come to the microphone.
Good evening, Council. My name is Lisa Monroe. I reside at 112 Hoffmeyer Lane in Robinson. You guys usually see me here for the Art Center. Sorry, that's not what I'm here today for. Wanted to speak in favor of this parking restriction being lifted for Airbnbs. I own a property at 618 South 7th Street, and yes, we are providing on-site parking for the required vehicles, but they obviously sometimes bring additional friends, and when that happens, we want them to be able to safely park near the property, and it is very difficult when street parking is not an option, and so we are very much in favor of this happening, and certainly would like to answer any questions that anybody might have and how we can make this happen.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. The next card I have is Dana Gage.
I had to bring my notes on my computer. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing me out. My name is Dana Gage. My son Riley and I operate a short-term rental at 821 Clay Avenue. It's located on the same block as the Findery, Backyard Barbecue, and Mama and Papa B's. I've spoken to Council twice about my concern on safety in restricting on-street parking for short-term rental owners, particularly on busy streets like Clay Avenue, where we are located. I strongly support the ordinance that would allow our guests the simple privilege of parking in front of the home that they are renting. It was honestly never our plan to own a short-term rental in Waco. My son Riley is a Baylor graduate and decided to make his home here in Waco. He manages the business, and we are a small family business making a go of it here in this town. We took the house down to the studs when we got it. It was in immense disrepair. It took us 18 months to transform it into something we hope the city of Waco can be proud of. I myself worked as general contractor on the project. My son Riley did a lot of the work inside the house, and we take a lot of pride in what we accomplished. We've hosted 65 sets of guests from 30 states and 3 countries, and I support allowing our guests to park on the street primarily because of safety. This house was built in the 1920s. Our driveway is narrow and it's steep. And I'm sandwiched in between 2 other properties, and the line of sight is often severely limited as our guests back out onto Clay Avenue, which is quite busy. It's not the sleepy little town that they expect when they watch Fixer Upper. They're often very surprised at how busy it is downtown. That makes for a dangerous and a nerve-wracking experience for both me and my guests as I watch them slam on the brakes as they try to avoid oncoming traffic, and I watch the oncoming traffic slam on the brakes to try to avoid my guests. It's simply not a safe situation. So lastly, I just want to point out the inequity of the situation. Our neighborhood is mixed. We're in the downtown heart. We are with businesses and we are with residences, and we're all intermingled. This is not a sleepy little street nestled in a tucked-away neighborhood. We are right in the thick of things. So as such, it really seems grossly unfair and highly inequitable that both residents of and visitors to downtown Waco can legally park on the street, whereas my guests cannot. Frankly, every weekend our street is lined with parked cars anyway. Because of Magnolia, it's hard to find a spot. And conversely, on weekdays, there are typically plenty of open spaces which anyone can use, with the exception of my guests. I think any short-term rental owner here would tell you they're proud of what they've accomplished, and we're proud to be ambassadors to Waco, and we encourage you to make the safety of Waco visitors a priority by passing this ordinance.
Thank you. The next card I have is Andrew Lopez. Mr. Lopez, before you begin, I want to be clear, you and a couple of others had submitted cards on more than one item that are not public hearings, and so you have 3 minutes to speak tonight. If you want to address more than one item, you'll need to address them all now.
My name is Andrew Lopez, and I live at 823 Clay Avenue. And I do have a real concern about this. Is the third time it's the first reading. I'm just totally baffled by that. We would like to continue to have the rules set as they have been since we've designed this. We had no other complaints really with anybody else in this regards. And the idea of, as Ms. Gage mentioned, she is in the thick of things. Basically, she probably wouldn't be doing it there if it wasn't being in the middle of the thick of things. It's unfortunate in that respect, but the slamming of the brakes and so forth, I'm at my home there 90% of the time. My living room's in the front, my office is on the other side of the front. I don't hear this, I don't see this. I do hear the cars scraping as they go down off the driveway, but that's because that's the way they did their driveway. They came in and repaired the sidewalk and so forth. I believe that the problem with these properties, and hers in particular, is a substandard lot. And that's why they have problems parking in the driveway, because they can't open the doors properly. Well, it's kind of a buyer beware situation. And we definitely oppose this. I've brought information to you to show why 40% of the people don't have driveways on Clay Street. The parking is a very much of a premium. And to allow more to continue I find it kind of ludicrous. Since you're going to do this to me on the time, I've handed you out 2 items, and it really pertains to the short-term rentals, more than 5 units, and for condos and things of this nature. And if I can show you quickly on this, as you can see, it does talk about from the ADA. Has you not passed that out? Can you stop the clock then?
Yeah,
so give you time to read that.
We'll give you a minute once we get these passed out.
There aren't enough for...
There's 2 handouts for each.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay. As you're well aware, it talks about the 5 units. And we've had discussions about this, and it's stated that, well, these properties, they probably are ADA compliant. What we also have talked about is a state legislation that's coming this summer. And there's going to be some decisions made in how these STRs are to be regulated or dealt with. I feel that if we go ahead and pass this today, and the legislation in 90 days or so comes in and changes it, I feel that what you've done is shortly grandfathered them in, so it won't apply to them when the state law legislation comes in. So I would ask you to shelf that until the state legislation has made the decisions, because if they do approve what they wanted to approve, then this is not a problem. But if they change it, the things that I believe that you're going to say is that they're grandfathered in, which I think is misleading to the public and misleading to the process.
Let me ask you, I want to be sure I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
The ADA, I'm just not following you're talking about the definition, you've got underlined more than 6 guest rooms.
Well, okay, that's the city of Waco's.
Right.
But ADA is 5. So there is a conflict, and I feel that government standard says 5, city of Waco says 6, and we do have some that have rooms advertised 6, 7, and 8 that are being advertised on some of these websites. So we have people that's already expanded on that and not following the rules. And we have an ADA compliance that's going to come into play. But I really feel that we should shelf that portion of extending more than 5 to condominiums and apartment complexes until after the Senate convenes this summer, which is going to be about 90 days. I don't think that's making it go too far to ask the city council to hold off on that portion.
I don't see how that could possibly grandfather in with those, they're still going to have to comply with the ADA.
Well,
But we don't follow ADA compliance. The city of Waco doesn't inspect for ADA compliance.
Correct, so that's not our issue,
Mm-hmm.
it's my point.
Well, it's not your issue, but it's a lawsuit issue to them, because I can pick up the phone, call a lawyer up and say, send those people a letter. And I want to tell you, they're already doing it in Austin. They've been doing it for the last 4 years. There's a lot of young attorneys who are hungry for some money, and this is one way that they're utilizing individuals. You can go on Google it, and you can sit on the computer and say who they think ADA compliant or isn't.
Okay.
So I just don't want to create a mess without having the state senate approving what they're going to approve.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you all, thank you.
Okay. So I don't know how your voting is going to go on this, but are you voting on 2 things, on 3
We'll
different
we'll vote according
agendas?
to the agenda, Mr. Lopez. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion on ordinance 2020-156?
I'll move approval on first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and Councilmember Meek has filed an affidavit of substantial interest. Is there any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes. Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido. No. Bearfield.
Yes.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-157.
An ordinance amending Chapter 13 licenses, permits, and business regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco, Texas, by amending portions of Article 8 bed and breakfast facilities and short-term rental facilities to address length of license and density restrictions, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for penalties, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 5-0 council vote on first reading on February 18th, 2020.
Okay, and we have 2 cards on this one. The first is Paige Goedeker. And Ms. Goedeker, you also had mentioned several different items on your card, and you'll only be able to have one chance for 3 minutes to speak, please.
Thank you
You
for
could address
clarifying.
other items, you just only have three minutes altogether.
Thank you for clarifying that. My name is Paige Goedeker, 210 Dallas Street. First, to speak to this issue then briefly, I appreciate your hard work in considering this 500-foot density radius change for the R2 zone. I'd like to request 2 slight modifications for this if you are passing it, if you decide to pass it tonight. My main request is this: existing R2 STR owners should be able to maintain the right to sell their remodeled homes to buyers who would like to continue operating them as STRs, which under this ordinance change would not be possible wherever there happens to be another grandfathered in STR already operating within 500 feet. Allow me to give a brief personal example. My first investment property as a stay-at-home mom is a single-bedroom R2 house I bought last summer. While I'm grandfathered into the existing ordinance, as of last week, there is another house 479 feet away down the street, 8 houses down. that has a license. If this ordinance passes without this type of clause that I'm requesting, I would be unable to turn around in a few years if needed, perhaps if my husband takes a job in another city, and recoup my investment in this 1910 home, as I believe the only way to do so on a one-bedroom house of this small footprint size would be to sell it to an investor who recognizes its value as an STR, which would be a right I would no longer have if this ordinance change passes as written. Because STR licenses don't transfer with the house, and rightly so, we need to find a way to assign the right to future STR buyers to apply for a license under the ordinance under which the house was previously licensed as an STR. I believe this is a win-win, since the goal here is not to weed out existing R2 STRs, but simply put a cap on their density in any one given area. Another request on this matter is shorter, and that is simply that you would allow the effective date of this ordinance change to be delayed in case any investors in R2 zones have not had a chance yet to get their licensing in. This doesn't affect me in any way, but I suspect it might affect others. With my remaining minute, I have two other things on the agenda tonight, and that is Ordinance 2020-159. I'm a homeowner and fellow applicant of this change, and just want to say that I'm excited, along with my neighbors, 17 lots all together, to put in this rezoning request in East Waco to change to O3, as you heard me say at the first reading last month. This zoning change will bring consistency to these blocks that currently have 4 types of zoning near Lipsitz and Elm Avenue, and will bring them in line with the Waco Comprehensive Plan for this portion of East Waco. Lastly, I ran into Nancy Grayson at Lula Jane. She told me that Ordinance 2020-162 would be up for tonight. That's the historical designation on our home that has the unique single wall construction. She wanted you to know she would be here under any circumstances, but she's in Austin babysitting her grandchildren. She's passionate about this historical designation. Thank you very much for your time.
Good job.
Got 15 seconds left.
What else you got?
All right. Next card is Jill Barrett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for hearing me out. I agree with the points that Paige Goodacre has just made, and I'd like to briefly add a few points of my own as well. As you all well know, the R2 500-foot density question is a complex one, especially as the split in the city's survey results indicated with 51% against the 500-foot barrier and 49% in favor. That's pretty significant. As such, I believe that more time should be given in order to fully consider any unintended consequences from an ordinance change of this kind. I'd like to ask that you approve the rest of the ordinance change tonight without this R2 restriction for now, letting it be considered separately for subsequent ordinance conversation and revision. If that isn't going to be the case, let me bring up these points. This ordinance change is looking to add R2 zone to the list of zones that have a 500-foot distance parameter between STRs, which is R1A, R1B, R1C, and RE. But R2 is actually different from those other zones in 2 key regards. First, unlike those zones, an R2 homeowner does not need to apply for a special permit to run an STR, but can simply be licensed straight away. This is because the R2 zoning verbiage says STRs are allowed by right, and that's very significant language. This is language that my husband and I have purchased many properties and decided to sell other properties because we knew that our R2 houses, ones that we've actually lived in and raised our daughter in, and then whenever we moved to a different project, we turned into an STR. We would not have necessarily made decisions to renovate those properties as our home and then an STR had we known that this change was going to happen, because it drastically affects our investment. So the by right language is significant, and it would effectively take away the rights from some R2 neighbors, but not others, which is also significant. The first one to submit an application with an STR license wins, and the neighbor loses that has what has been named by the city as their right. Thus, putting rights in the hands of one neighbor over the other could be discriminatory in favor of those who are quicker to the draw, perhaps those who are wealthier or more informed, et cetera, which is a disconcerting prospect. Again, while I know that there's such a distance parameter in those other suburban and rural zones, such as one neighbor can do an STR and the other can't, the difference is that those zones don't allow STRs by right. Secondly, the other way the R2 is different than the other zones is that a density clause of this kind is that these are in moderate density areas, allowing two-family homes, duplexes, and zero lot line dwellings. For this reason, 500 feet in an R2 affects a lot more homeowners than it does in other zones. In an R2 rental house my friend owns, 500 feet affects 35 properties, as many as 9 houses down and 2 streets over, whereas an R1 house would most likely affect much fewer. If you're not interested in pushing pause on this, at the very least, I'd like to ask you to reconsider applying a one-size-fits-all solution of 500 feet to R2, perhaps considering a more moderate number, like maybe 200 feet, a number which pops to mind because that is the radius that is immediately impacted in the R1 special permit.
I need to
Thank
stop you there. Thank you. All right, that's all the cards I have. Is there a motion on this?
Well, I mean, I am cognizant of changing the rules out from under property owners who have made an investment, given an expectation of one set, and then us not. I feel like we need to honor that somehow. So, I mean, in general, I'm in favor of the 500-foot buffer, like approving it, but I think there needs to be some accommodation for that in some form or fashion. So, I mean,
You're saying in general, you're in favor of the 500-foot buffer in R2?
Yeah, with accommodation for, maybe with a delayed implementation to allow for 3 to 6 months or something, to allow for those that have made that investment to be able to capitalize on it.
I'm going to agree with Councilmember Kennard. I think maybe a solution, or part of a solution, is to maybe extend the effect date of when it goes into, whether it's 90, 180 days from now, or whatever that may be. But I would hate for us to change the ordinance or change the rules while someone's planning to invest. And so I do think maybe changing the effect date would probably be beneficial.
I agree with that. I guess in the past review of this ordinance, I've been so focused on the condominium part, and we got that straight in my mind. I was not focusing on this one quite as tightly. But I agree with John and Hector's comments on the effective date, and something like 6 months would work. Because I don't want to make it seem like we're changing rules in the middle of the stream and somebody's already made an investment.
So you're talking about a delay in the implementation just on the 500-foot buffer on R2. Everything else would become effective.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, just on that one portion, yes. I'm sorry, yes.
No, I just want to be sure
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Well, and also just again, as I think part and parcel of honoring that investment, one of our presenters points towards the transferability, given that one that already had it. I mean, that kind of makes sense.
I think that's a problem.
And I think that is a problem too. So I don't know. I mean, again, honestly, I think we need to relook at this whole thing. But since we're just doing this part right now,
Right.
I mean, I want to make sure that whatever we do is rational and reasonable and respectful of the investment that people, the investment that people have already put into it, and that those that have already contemplated can capitalize on as well.
Like, are these assignable or transferable?
No, that's the issue, though, is that if you don't allow some kind of assignability, then the 500-foot buffer can catch you.
Sure. Right.
Later on.
If you sell it and then somebody else has to apply, but there's more than 500, then they're automatically
Right.
excluded.
Right. So,
I'm always going to say I want to be protective of our neighborhoods.
yeah.
Period. Because what I would hate is I mean, and I know people have visions of whole communities of STRs, but I don't know that that's the type of neighborhood development that we're looking at. I mean, I can't speak for you all's districts, but I know in mine I have a housing shortage.
Sure.
And so and I agree, people need to, I am really excited about the reinvestment that's going into District 1 and East Waco specifically. And I really believe that there are boatloads of new Wacoans or, geographically reshifting Wacoans who have realized, the gem and jewel that we have in East Waco in District 1. I don't know that I want that transitional. Mm-hmm. I want community built. I want to revitalize the pride in East Waco that has always been, and that's because communities and families have nestled. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that being transitional in nature until we stabilize. Not in totality, because again, I tell you, I use short-term rentals. I agree with them. I just would prefer that, and again, speaking for me, some stabilization. I'm not anti looking at, you know, the possible addendum to what this is. I just want to make sure that, again, my focus is community facing.
Sure.
And neighborhood facing. And as far as District 1, stabilizing my neighborhood first.
Makes sense.
Well, that's the whole, I think, to your point, the whole conceit of us having these regulations in the first place is try to
do
balance.
so.
Is to
That's
do so,
right.
is try to balance
That's right.
that. And so, I think the 500 feet, even in R2, kind of does that, but I can appreciate your concern as well. But but again, that's just, again, the tension that's just continually playing out on this. It's tough. This whole thing is tough, because you want to preserve the character of a
That's
neighborhood
right.
while also
That's
preserving
right.
private property rights.
Well, then the other part of, to your point, John, also the, having the buffer, relatively speaking, the logic goes to an R2, 500 foot, when you're talking, or R1, 500 foot, when you go to R2, it's a more densely populated zoning, so in theory, you'd pull that buffer in to whatever, 300 feet, 250 feet, possibly, if we're talking about apples to apples. So, there's some merit, there's a logic path there, and there's some merit to that suggestion as well.
Just shifting the density from 5 to 3.
Bring it in tighter.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, just again, to the point of one of the presenters, that it does capture more residences and dwellings in R2 than it does in R1.
What if we had an implementation date out in the future, say it's 6 months from now or 9 months from now, for the 500-foot rule, and also ask that staff bring back recommendations to deal with the transferability before that, so
we could
that
amend it.
some of these things, I just think this particular thing needs a little more work.
Yeah.
But I also want to protect the neighborhoods in the meantime. So I don't know exactly I'm not sure what I just said does that.
No, I just, I defer to our city attorney about the transferability part. 'cause
Right.
I'm
Well, I
just-
think it's good. I don't think we can figure that out tonight, is
No.
my concern. I think that's complicated.
Yeah, special permits are owner specific, and so I'm not saying we couldn't find a solution for transferability. I don't see one as I sit here right now, but
Well, I think that's not the transferability. It is the issue of whether the 500-foot minimum could be, the fact that it had already passed that threshold be observed in the next application.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's complicated. I don't think we can figure it out as we sit here tonight. It's just can't do that kind of thing on the fly.
And I do have some concerns about expectations if y'all set an effective date for 6 months with the expectation that we change it in those 6 months. I think that to the extent that there's people that have talked about expectations,
Yeah.
there's going to be a different group talking about expectations
Yeah.
as well.
That's fair.
6 months from now.
I think that's a fair concern. So I think what we have is we have the option, a motion as is, a motion eliminating the 500-foot aspect for R2 in this ordinance, or some modification of it to a smaller distance. I'm sure there are other options.
Do we like the rest of it? We put back the on-street parking.
Well, that's now a separate ordinance that will come back for second reading.
Oh, that's separate, okay.
But yes.
So, I like the rest of the stuff in here.
Right.
Maybe we just pull that one and then create a separate one next week for that.
For the 500-foot buffer,
Yeah,
or
just don't
whatever
make
that may look
one
like.
yet. Just-
Yeah, I don't know whether we can, to me, the 500-foot rule in STR, in R2 is not quite as simple as just bringing it back in 2 weeks. That one may need a little more work before we can bring it back. But but then are we exposing these neighborhoods to a big influx in the meantime because of the by right aspect of R2 zoning?
Made the expectation,
Yeah.
enacted, I don't know.
Or do we pass it now and then with the idea that maybe this can be modified later and come back? But, again, that impacts those that have invested now.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I wouldn't be in favor of enacting a 500-foot buffer without any grandfathering provisions now. So,
Yeah. Because,
yeah,
again, it's
to respect the
changing the
investment.
rule, yeah.
Yeah, or
Changing the rules in the middle of
time
game
out.
is not-
Right, yeah, yeah.
So you're okay with passing as long as there's like an effect date down the road? Or,
Can we do it that way? I mean, it sounds like there's
I don't
problems.
think
Is
we
that
can.
problematic?
But then the expectation we have to come back and actually change it the way we like it to address the other concerns on that if we do that.
So you're saying pass it as it is now?
No, I mean, I won't, with the way it is now, I wouldn't, if the 500 foot is in there where it's enacted immediately, I wouldn't be in favor of that.
You would not? I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I would not.
Okay, I couldn't hear what you're saying.
I wouldn't either.
Can we call staff, because I have a question. Is it either or as far as precedent in R2? Is it standard 500? I mean, are there any instances where it is not?
Question for Clint. What do you mean? Standard 500?
I mean, if you said 350,
Yeah,
if you said
okay.
400, I mean, is that just on us to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Clint.
I'm sorry, what was the question? If we could go reduce the 500 feet?
Because, I mean, the 200 is just, no. Because that's just, it's still, that just opens up to a whole another thing. But is it up to us to set what the distance marker is? Is that what? So if it wasn't 500, if it was 350?
Leave the way it's posted and everything, you could do a different number than 500.
You go,
Go less.
On the R2 zoning, correct?
So we could go 350, but is that, even if we went 350, that doesn't cover what we're concerned about, John, right? I mean,
Right, which is the,
timing. Right.
and respecting of the investment, right? Timing issue.
That still doesn't deal with the issue, with some of these other issues that we talked about.
This is problematic.
But it does, I mean, I think it potentially helps, potentially causes trouble.
When would this go into effect anyway? Like immediately tomorrow or?
all ordinances unless specified otherwise, I think it's 10 days after publication by charter. But sometimes y'all do, I mean, there is precedent for having later effective dates, like y'all did it when you did the payday lending ordinance so that the stakeholders, or business owners, for lack of a better term, could get notice of the new ordinance. So y'all have done later effective dates in other situations.
is there a time frame for those later effective dates? Like, can we not go past a certain amount of X number of days or months?
No, it needs to be a date certain, but you could go, I mean, I've never seen anybody go much further than, 6 months, but I guess theoretically you could.
And if we were to do that, the property owners would simply need to get their license applications in before, because it's not a special permit. What would be the,
That's been as long as the application was in review before the effective date, that's been our policy.
So during, let's say we do extend the time frame for 180 days, another STR cannot be opened up within 500 foot during this time frame, correct? In the R2 zone?
No, so the exact opposite. So if y'all have an effective date that's 6 months out, people can apply right next door to each other in R2s, and would be, that owner would be able to operate a STR at that location as long as they own the property.
So
Assuming that they comply with the licensing
Sure,
ordinance. I mean, let's be clear, but yeah.
The only guidance I'll add, council, is when you have a scenario like that, you want to use the briefest amount of time so that you don't have just an inordinate rush on applications. So as y'all been bantering about days, I know y'all haven't really landed on anything. I think my preference would be as short as possible, so that you don't end up with just an inordinate amount of runs at permit activity during that time period.
Yeah, and I would add, we have seen an uptick in license applications in R2 as we've discussed this ordinance change over the last 6 months when we started talking about this in August, because people did know it was coming forward.
So I'll just throw something out.
Grounds, yeah.
90 days work and then, but we change it to 350 feet for R2, change it to 350 instead of 500, but and make it effective 90 days, whatever, June 30, June 1st. That's June 30th.
I don't know if I would feel comfortable, though, changing both, like an effective date and shortening
The distance.
the distance. I don't know if I feel comfortable doing both of them right now. I do think there has to be some type of protection there, and I don't think changing both buffer and effective date would, I think it'll do that quite opposite of it.
Yeah, I guess I would just add, when we started looking at this really closely, you know, especially in the core of the city, the R2 zone neighborhoods are, you know, dominant single-family neighborhoods.
Sure.
And we felt like they needed to have the same opportunity for the same protections as the single-family zone neighborhoods do. So that's why we
It's
left it
by
at
right.
500
I mean,
feet.
because see, with the R2, it's by right. You have the ability to be there, you know, and so the other neighborhoods and some of our more vocal neighborhoods who, you know, have the ability to come in and was like, absolutely not, we are not agreeing with, they don't have that privilege.
Yeah.
And so who's speaking for them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I would just, I mean, you know, if we're leaving it at 500, extending the date to enactment a few months to allow for honoring the investment that's been put in with the expectation. I mean, but as it is still everything currently situated, we still have to approve each one of these.
Correct.
And if we feel like a neighborhood is getting
Not
overrun.
R2s.
Not
Not
R2.
R2. This is by right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this is by right. This is by
Yeah.
right. Okay, I'm sorry. I missed that part. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Well, it seemed that we would go ahead and do the extension of the date, but maybe ask Clint to continue to look at the assignability features, the transferability features in a different vote or in a different ordinance change. But this one, since it's a second reading, I mean, because I'm thinking we'd like to at least get this one through and put the, I just don't want to change horses in the middle of the stream on somebody. I think it's, I think we're all agree on that 90 days out, but on the distance, maybe we just look at that again in a totally different.
Let me ask Bradley, you suggested that we make this as short a period of time as possible. 90 days still creates an opportunity for a pretty big influx.
It certainly does. I think that the 6-month time period creates a lot of concern for me, but anything lower is helpful. 90 seems like the upper threshold that I would
Yeah,
suggest.
I'm wondering whether 30 days may not be a more appropriate threshold. I mean, if people are actively working on these now, that gives them time to file. It doesn't, to me, 90 days has a greater opportunity to jeopardize the neighborhoods
The longer.
than the shorter being better. But there are obviously, I mean, this is obviously a thorny issue, and there are adverse, unintended consequences no matter which way you go. So, as John said, we continue to try to strike this balance, and it's very difficult to strike.
So the reminder of a financial interest in a short-term rental, that's why I'm not speaking on anything.
I was about to
We're
like,
about
no!
Great job. The vote of confidence.
So, where we are.
So we're gonna like target like April 30th then for April 30th, there's 45 or 50 days or something?
I was like, I'll give you 45.
Yeah,
I think
that's where it'd be. Nice round number.
Do 45.
April 15th?
But it's 10 days
Tax
after.
day.
The ordinance is enacted 10 days after, so it would be,
So April 30th, is that what we're saying?
that would be, yeah, that would be about 45, yeah.
All right, is there a motion to approve the ordinance with the amendment that the 500-foot buffer for short-term rental type 2 and bed and breakfast homestay establishments in the R2 zoning district not take effect until April 30th.
Motion for approval, yeah.
Oh, wait.
So
Who-
whoever-
We have a motion here
Second.
Second, sure.
and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the
It's
council.
imperfect, but I think we're getting there.
It's fair.
All right, please poll the council.
Holmes. Kennard. Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield. Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-158.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code. Providing the zoning map shall be changed that certain property described as lots 9 and 10, Block 4, Tinsley subdivision, known as 1401 Franklin Avenue, shall be changed from C3 district classification and become and be designated into C4 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on February 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek. Kennard. Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield. Deaver.
Yes. That motion carries. Ordinance 2020-159.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing the comprehensive plan be amended to change the land use designation from urban residential to medium-density residential office flex. That the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code. And the zoning map shall be changed that certain property described as lots 14, 15, 16, and A, Block 12, Rennick Addition, property ID number 187070, known as 304 Dallas Street, shall be changed from R1B district classification and become and be designated to O3 district classification. Providing the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code. And the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots 4 through 10, 13 through 17, and 21, Block 8, Rennick Addition, property ID numbers 187017, 187018, 187019, 187020, 187022, 187023, 187027, 1870026, 1870025, and 316083, known as 207, 209, 211, 213, 215, 217, and 219 Man Street, and 206, 208, 212 Archer Street, and 214 Nathaniel McCoy Street, lots 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4A, and 4B, Block 12, Rennick Addition, property ID number 187062, known as 307 Archer, also known as 412 Rusk Street. Lots 11B, 12B, and 13B, Block 11, Rennick Addition, property ID number 187057, known as 212 Dallas Street. Lots 11A, 12A, and 13A, Block 11, Rennick Addition, property ID number 187056, known as 210 Dallas Street. Lots 14C, 15C, and 16C, Block 11, Rennick Addition, property ID 187058, known as 204 Dallas Street. Lot 17, Block 11, Rennick Addition, property ID number 375946, known as 202 Dallas Street, and Lot 18, Block 11, Rennick Addition, property ID 375947, known as 200 Dallas Street, shall be changed from R1B and R2 district classifications be designated to O3 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on February 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek. Kennard. Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield. Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-160.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code. Provide the zoning map shall be changed that certain property described as lots 8 and 9, Block 1, Primrose Edition, known as 2114 and 2116 South 11th Street, shall be changed from C5 district classification and become and be designated to O2 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on February 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Approval on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-161.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as Lot 12, Block F, Farm Lot 31, known as 2116 through 2122 Columbus Avenue, shall be changed from O3 district classification and become and be designated to O2 district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 5-0 council vote on first reading on February 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-162.
An ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, designating the property described as Lot 28, Block 3, Beal Nelson Addition, known as 716 East Pecan Avenue, as a historic landmark, establishing design guidelines regulating alteration or demolition, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 6-0 council vote on first reading on February 18th, 2020.
Is there a motion?
Move for approval on second.
No, I'll second
Approval on
hers.
second reading.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I've got it.
Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Ordinance 2020-163.
An ordinance abandoning a portion of an alley known as Burnett Avenue on South 8th Street and South 9th Street and located between Ross Avenue and Clay Avenue, described as being a 0.082 acre right-of-way abandonment of a called 20-foot wide alley known as Burnett Avenue located in the Thomas Jefferson Chambers Survey, Abstract 7, in the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, requiring a wastewater easement either be retained or be relocated out of the abandoned right-of-way at developer's cost, requiring an ingress-egress easement be dedicated through the property connecting the remaining portion of the alley to 9th Street, finding no duty to maintain, authorizing the city manager to execute quitclaim deeds, providing a severability clause, and finding and terminating the meeting at which this ordinance is passed to open the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 5-0 council vote on first reading on February 18th, 2020.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second?
Any discussion?
Did this, Clint, just a quick question, did the loose ends on this one get tied up as far as the access for that neighbor and all that, and the alley and whatnot?
Yes, sir.
Can you repeat, please?
It did, yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes. Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. We will now open the hearing of visitors. During the hearing of visitors section of the agenda, we provide an opportunity for any citizen to present concerns or address issues that are not matters for consideration listed on the agenda. Council is unable to conduct discussion, but will listen, ask staff to look into concerns, and provide follow-up. Please provide registration information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation, and staff will distribute those to the council. If you are unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. When called to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Each speaker must limit comments to 3 minutes. If you are speaking on behalf of a group of 10 or more individuals present, please have those persons stand at the beginning of your comments, and you will be given 10 minutes to address the council. Please note that if you stand in support of a person getting 10 minutes to speak, you will forfeit your right to speak on that item. I have 3 cards tonight. First is Alan Northcutt. I'm sorry, I have 4 cards.
Thank you. Alan Northcutt, MD, 619 Stone Manor Drive, McGregor.
Sorry. I forgot to reset.
I'm on the clock. See, where was I? 619 Stone Manor Drive, McGregor. It is in Waco, Precinct 5. I do have a handout. So the recent decision to procure 100% renewable power for municipal needs in 2022 is an important first step, and it's gratifying that the citizens' voice was heard in this. but to totally reach net zero by 2050 is still a huge task, and we need to move ahead briskly on this. And one of the areas of low-hanging fruit is electric vehicles. I have a spreadsheet for you, and I looked at 3 vehicles from the energy guidance document, and I compared 7 electric vehicles and price-wise. And because of savings in fueling and maintenance costs, most of these vehicles actually on lifetime costs come out lower than the gasoline vehicle. And the ones that are lower are indicated in the color green on your spreadsheet. And I would point out, and I don't think this is in the energy guidance document, right now the state of Texas has a $2,500 rebate. This is applied to citizens and cities. So that this would be an excellent time to purchase EVs. They started out with 2,000 of these, and they have like 1,600 of these rebates still remaining. So the city could definitely get a hold of some of these rebates. The advantages, in addition to the cost elimination of our greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles, the city has a responsibility to the future of its residents. And we know the climate crisis is bearing down upon us. Elimination of tailpipe pollution, which kills tens of thousands a year. Decreased risk of mechanical breakdown. There's only 20 moving parts versus 2,000 in internal combustion engines. Decreased risk of non-compliance with EPA air quality index requirements as we increase the number of electric vehicles. Improved health of residents, and with that, decreased health care costs, and decreased noise pollution. They're extremely quiet. And an improved image for the city as we move into the 21st century. And I just would say there's concern in the energy guidance document about the cost of charging infrastructure. For these type of vehicles, there's no concern at all. All you need is a 220 line in the whatever the storage facility is, and a charger for each vehicle, which you can purchase a very reliable one for $300. So that's really not a concern. And I have some other information in your handout. That's important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next card is Lee Harkins.
My name's Lee Harkins. I'm from Hillsboro, Texas, and I have my cute wife of 62 years. Raise your hand, Jerry. Don't blush. But I'm here to perhaps fill in some things, information. I'm not selling anything. I sent an email. I hope you've had time to at least high-speed scan it. The last attachment is an eye-opener. I'll refer to it in a minute. The body of the, I just want you to know a little bit more about where I'm coming from. I'm not Einstein, I'm not totally stupid, but number 3 in my high school class, those 2 girls probably were a little smarter. Baylor University, graduated in 1959, yeah, I'm 82, mathematics, ROTC, and entered as second lieutenant, worldwide experience, raised our family. We're exposed to a tremendous number of things. Our kids all reflected. They're sharp and they're smart, just like my wife. And they're successful in their field, just as you guys are. You're public service minded and sharp, or you wouldn't be here. And I know what that means. After 22 years, basically worldwide, open, staffed, and equipped, and managed my daughter's medical practice. Well, I didn't finish. While in the Air Force, I finished an MBA, Ohio State University, and MBAs are fearless, you know. But opened my daughter's medical practice in Hillsboro, and she, for local reasons, that little town wasn't the right place for her practice. But she's now at national average in Newton, Kansas. After she left, I attended some city council meetings and just took more interest in the county for whatever reason. I said, these guys need help and they don't even know it. Oh, man, what's the green light, Mr. Mayor? What's the green light?
I can't answer that.
Oh,
Ask the city
Oh, I'm
secretary.
sorry. Just no trap door, please.
I think it may mean you have a minute left.
1 minute.
Ran for county commissioner and won, great experience, did a lot of good for the county. And to back it up again, I've adjunct level, non-PhD, you know, I've taught logic, economics, management, and photography. And so, yeah, I'm a mile wide and call it whatever you want, half-inch deep, that's okay. I've been around a bunch of blocks and I just can't wait to get up every morning. So that's where I'm coming from. Now, I think that fills in pretty well the body of the, just where I'm coming from. Attachment 1, I hope you put that under your pillow. That's the guts. Oh, man.
Sorry, sir.
That's right.
That's 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
I
Thank you.
didn't quite know how to read the instrumentation.
Okay.
Please just read the attachment.
We'll do it. Thank you very much. All right, next card is Teresa Porter.
Teresa Porter, 1125 Taylor. Chapter President, Heart of Texas Electric Auto Association. Brand new 501c3 nonprofit here in Texas. Y'all should have one of these. After y'all get done with the magazine, pass it on to interested people, friends, family, neighbors, staffers, etc. This is the 2019 edition. I'll work on getting y'all the 2020s. This gives you an idea of the hybrids and the EVs that are out there right now. And the EVs are really cool. In 2020, there's at least 17 vehicles that are going to come out this year, and several of them are going to be trucks. And the heavy-duty industry is really coming along, too. So, yeah, y'all might have had to buy that diesel cat today, but give it a year or two. The earth movers are coming. I'll be at the Church of the Open Door in Belmead on Saturday night from 6 to 9 p.m. with a little display for the chapter if y'all want to come out and learn more about the organization and stuff. See y'all there.
Thank you. The last card I have is Andrew Lopez.
Hey, Council. Andrew Lopez, 823 Clay. I know I've been up here speaking a lot about STRs, and it has a lot to do with some of the background that I've had with them. But the one thing I want to talk to you about is your decision on these new investment properties. There's one item that's not really being addressed, and that is the inflated sales on these properties. They are in neighborhoods that have a certain market value. And these properties are being sold now and listed based on a return on investment, and the average is about 11% is what they're looking for. These investments are averaging between $275,000 to $315,000 per property. I have to ask you, how do you think that affects the neighbors, private owners, when it comes to their taxes? You don't have any jurisdiction over the appraisal district. And the appraisal district cannot decipher what's a business and what a home is. The only thing they can do is decipher what sales have come in. So I understand I'm not against STRs. I believe some of the rules that we've had in place was sufficient, but it appears to me that a lot of these rules are being bent over and changed to accommodate a market that really you don't realize what the outcome is going to turn out to be here in the next 3 years. Austin has dealt with it. Between 2000 and 2012, the value of pricing had quadrupled. Well, guess what? The same thing's happening here. We're not as big as they are. We don't make the kind of incomes that they do. How do you feel that there are people here that are on fixed incomes, who are just barely making it, when the taxes come up, you're going to be pushing them out of their houses or forcing them to sell? Is that the intent and the direction that the city wants for the residents of Waco. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to address the council? Seeing no one, we'll close the hearing of visitors. Are there any council member reports on committees or boards or commissions liaison visits? Seeing none, we will adjourn at 7:09. Thank you.